We welcome Eylon Levy, Israeli Government Spokesperson. He joins us from Tel Aviv. Eylon, thank you so much for your time. The nation holding its breath once again. Some families have been notified. This group of 11 hostages, we're hearing 9 children, 2 moms, to be freed in the coming hours. But already one child has been released without their mother. Hilla is in Israel. Her mom Raya is still in captivity. It's a clear violation of the deal. Today we've been discussing here last-minute changes to the list. What is your response? What is Israel going to do to make sure that families get to come back, mothers and children, together?
It's a clear violation, Benita, of every principle of humanity. We're doing everything we can to reunite families and bring them together, and Hamas is doing everything it can in order to separate them and tear them apart. Even the hostages who are coming back home, and we're so happy, and we've been crying with everyone to see the hostages returning home, are coming back to broken families. Yesterday, 6 of the 9 children had at least one parent murdered on October 7th. Little Abigail Idan lost 2 parents, many of them leaving behind male relatives in the Gaza Strip, and we're determined to continue bringing everyone back. You know, today marks the end of the original 4-day hostage release pause, but the plan calls for a second stage. And in that second stage, we've lined up enough Palestinian prisoners, enough violent criminals in our jails to release, to secure another 50 hostages over another 5-day humanitarian hostage release pause if Hamas chooses to release them. And if it doesn't, we're going to continue piling on the military pressure on Hamas until we bring it to its knees, begging for another breather so it will give us back all of the hostages. We're going to bring back the men and the women, the young and the old, the civilians and the soldiers. There will be no one left behind.
Eylon, talking of the young and the old, baby Kfir Bibas, he's become a symbol for the nation. 9 months old when he was abducted, 10 months old now. His 4-year-old brother Ariel, his mom Shiri, still in captivity. And now we're hearing just a short while ago reports that Hamas handed baby Kfir over to another faction and that he is being kept in Khan Yunis. Difficult, obviously, to confirm information like that. Nonetheless, what can you share? What do you know?
Just horrific beyond measure. We've known that since the original massacre, Hamas didn't transport all of the hostages in buses into the Gaza Strip. Some of them were abducted by all sorts of other factions and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and they've been held in inhumane conditions with no communication with their families or the outside world and no access to the Red Cross, again, in violation of every code of humanity. And if that is true, the report that you are citing there, then I think it's only a reminder about the sheer evil of the terror organization we are dealing with and why this war has to end with the end of Hamas. As difficult as it is, as painful as it is, a terror organization that abducts a little baby, a 9-month-old baby, and doesn't immediately hand him back and say, oops, we shouldn't have done that, and holds him on as hostage, and according to the report you said, maybe even handed him over to another terrorist faction. That is not a terror regime that we can leave in power for a day longer, and that's why we're doing everything we can to bring all of the hostages home, and this war will end with the end of Hamas.
And just when you thought the trauma couldn't be any worse for these hostages, 7 weeks in captivity, having been abducted during that terror onslaught, we are now hearing reports that one of the released hostages has said that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar actually came to visit them in Gaza, spoke to them. It's unimaginable to think. Apparently the message, and I say apparently the message, is that he said they would be safe. But can you imagine, this is the man speaking to these hostages after an unimaginable 7 weeks in captivity. Your thoughts?
Really a jaw-dropping report that has not been officially confirmed, but truly horrifying. I really can't begin to imagine the horror that those hostages are facing and experiencing, and the reports have begun to come out about the conditions that they were held in. It's not only their families who've been held in the dark, they have been held in the dark. They know nothing about what happened after they were abducted, which family members were murdered, who else might have been abducted and being held in a neighboring tunnel. This is a twisted and evil regime that is acting without any semblance of humanity. And that's why Perhaps in contrast to other conflicts or rounds of fighting, everyone in Israel is so united around this goal of victory against Hamas because we understand that we are fighting for humanity. We're not only fighting for the outside world, for the Western world, for humankind, we're fighting for the most basic right of a baby to sleep in its bed and not be abducted by armed terrorists with Kalashnikov rifles. We understand what we are fighting for. And I think that gives Israel a lot of strength, because we know we cannot abandon our friends and families in those tunnels, and we cannot return to a world in which our friends and families, each and every one of us in this country, is vulnerable to an army of terror that can decide at any moment to invade our borders and snatch us into its tunnels.
What kind of pressure, Eylon, is Israel putting on the Red Cross? You spoke about it a little bit earlier in terms of getting access. We are understanding there could be 178 hostages still inside Gaza. Many need medication. Many are elderly, not to mention the trauma that they have been through. What kind of pressure is Israel putting on the Red Cross to do its job?
Unfortunately, the Red Cross can't go in all guns a-blazing to see the hostages. Not that I think it would, even if it could. It is ultimately Hamas that has to give them access to see the hostages. Until then, until it sees them, it is essentially a glorified taxi service. Now, I think there are many things the Red Cross could be doing if it wanted to put pressure on Hamas. Because if you've been following their social media and the statements by their officials, they have leaned in quite strongly into parroting the Palestinian line in this story and maligning Israel and supporting that propaganda war. So we think it's very important that the Red Cross more clearly state Israel's rights, not just its obligations, also its rights in this conflict, and be very clear that this is absolutely unacceptable, that it will not continue taking those steps in support of the Palestinian narrative, and they must be granted access, and they must give medication and medical treatment to those people. You know, we're beginning to see now the effects of the Red Cross being denied access. That poor elderly woman, 84 years old, who her family told media was taken out of the Gaza Strip with a body temperature that had dropped into the 20s in Celsius, barely conscious. That poor woman who was taken out with bullets in her legs. These are the consequences of Hamas not giving access. And just today, one of the mothers of one of the victims showed Elon Musk a video of her son, Hirsch, whose arm was blown off being loaded into a pickup truck. They must be given access to the Red Cross. They must be given access immediately.
It's a level of evil that is difficult to comprehend. Very briefly, you mentioned it completely. Elon Musk is here. He and the Prime Minister having a conversation on X. He met the President, Benny Gantz, too. Talk us through briefly the significance of this meeting right now, day 51 of the war.
Mr. Musk is not only the wealthiest man in the world, he is also the owner of one of the most influential social media platforms, certainly when it comes to journalists and other academics, a platform in which we've seen a lot of incitement and hate speech and downright hateful lies and propaganda against the state of Israel. And we welcome, of course, the visit by any world leader or influential voice who wants to come and bear witness to the atrocities of October 7th, repeat what they saw, tell all of their followers, the people who hang on to their every word, who look up to them for inspiration, what they saw, and help to understand why Israel is fighting this wretched war that we didn't want, we didn't start, we didn't expect, but Hamas dragged us into with those atrocities, the atrocities that world leaders are going back and telling their people about.
And President Isaac Herzog telling Elon Musk that X is full of anti-Semitism and he could play a huge role in fighting that problem. We need to leave it there.
The president hasn't even seen my DMs talking about how much anti-Semitism exists on that platform.
I can only imagine on your DMs. Thank you so much. Eylon Levy, Israeli Government Spokesperson in Tel Aviv. Thank you for your time on i24 News.